Florida just printed a number that stopped the whole conversation. The typical home in this state is now worth $392,443. That is a fresh low for this entire correction, down 3% from a year ago. And it is not a fluke happening out on the edges. 85% of Florida's zip codes are worth less today than they were 12 months ago, 683 of them out of 801. 46 of the state's 67 counties are sitting below where they were last year. Almost every headline you have seen about Florida is built on that one story, and the frustrating part is that the story is true. Florida, on average, is sliding, but here is what they are not telling you. The exact same data set, the same Zillow numbers everyone is quoting to prove the decline, contains 12 counties that are not just holding on. They are at all-time record highs. Right now. In the middle of the slide, Palm Beach is not one of them. Naples is not one of them. Tampa and Orlando and Sarasota are not on the list either. The 12 places setting records this year are so far off the tourist map that almost nobody covering Florida real estate has said their names out loud. And once you see where they are, you are going to understand something about this market that the fear headlines will never tell you. This is not a prediction about next year. This is happening in the data that came out this month. 12 Florida towns. Nobody expected to hit record highs in 2026. Stay with me all the way to number 1, because the single fastest rising county in the entire state is a place with fewer people than a large high school. And the reason behind it changes how you should read every other number in Florida. Let me name the real villain here, because it is not a place. The villain is a phrase. The villain is the word Florida itself, used as if it were one market. When a report says Florida home values fell, your brain pictures the whole peninsula going down together, like water finding one level. That picture is wrong, and it is costing people money. The truth hiding inside the average is that two completely different Floridas are moving in opposite directions at the same time. One is the Florida you already know, the coasts and the big metros, and that Florida is cooling. The other is a quiet, cheap inland Florida that most buyers have never even driven through, and that Florida is quietly hitting new highs. One engine drives all 12 of these winners, and it is the same engine dragging the coast down. Hold that thought, because it is the whole video. A quick word on the numbers so you can fact check me in the comments. Every value here is the Zillow typical home value for the county, the same index the doom headlines use measured through this spring. I am anchoring each county to its main town so you know exactly where on the map we are standing. These are real, verifiable, boring little places, and that is exactly why nobody saw them coming. And one honest caveat before we start counting, because I would rather you hear it from me than from a comment. Most of these counties are tiny. Several of them trade fewer than 20 homes in a typical month. When a market is that small, a handful of sales can move the whole index, so a record high here does not carry the same weight as a record high in a county with 50,000 transactions a year. That cuts both ways. It means the number is real, but it also means it can turn quickly if the trickle of buyers dries up. I'm not selling you a cannot-lose story. I am showing you where the pressure is actually going and asking you to think about why. With that on the table, let us count them down. Number 12 is Columbia County, and the town at its heart is Lake City. The typical home there is worth about $271,000, and it just barely edged into record territory, up a fraction of a percent on the year. That fraction is the whole point. In a state where 46 counties are falling, simply not falling is now remarkable. Lake City sits at the crossroads where Interstate 10 meets Interstate 75, which makes it the cheapest real regional hub in North Florida. When you cannot afford Gainesville and you cannot afford Jacksonville, but you still need highways, hospitals, and a Walmart within reach, Lake City is where the math sends you. It is not glamorous, it is a logistics town. And logistics towns hold their value when the glamorous ones do not. Number 11 is Okeechobee. The county and the town share the name, wrapped around the giant lake at the center of the state. Homes there run about $293,000, a new high by the thinnest margin. Okeechobee is cattle country and bass fishing country, about as far from a beach condo lifestyle as Florida gets. But that distance is its armor. The costs that are punishing the coast, the insurance premiums, the windstorm exposure, the flood risk, they barely touch a ranch house 60 miles inland. Retirees who did the coastal math looked at the true carrying cost and quietly flinched or drifting toward places exactly like this. The lake does not have salt in it, and salt is what is repricing the rest of the state. Number 10 is Hamilton County, up on the Georgia line, and its town is Jasper. The typical home is only about $210,000, one of the lowest numbers you will hear today, and yet Hamilton has done something almost no coastal county can claim. Since 2019, it is up 92%. That is not a typo. The cheapest corner of Florida has nearly doubled in value in 6 years and is still climbing. When you start that low, a single family fleeing high prices somewhere else can move your entire market because there is almost nothing here to begin with. A few $100,000s of new demand in a county this small is not a ripple. It is a wave. Jasper did not boom in the way the coast boomed. Jasper just never got the memo that Florida was supposed to be falling, and every buyer who quietly crossed the state line looking for the cheapest square footage in Florida pushed it a little higher. Number 9 is Bradford County, and the town is Starkey, tucked in the commuter triangle between Gainesville and Jacksonville. Homes there sit around $257,000, up nearly 3% to a record. Stark is the overflow valve. Every time the price of living near a Florida university or a Florida port ticks up, the people who work those economies but cannot pay those prices spill one county over, and Bradford is one county over from 2 of them. That is not a story about Stark suddenly becoming desirable. It is a story about everywhere near Stark becoming unaffordable and the pressure having to go somewhere. Picture a nurse who works in Gainesville and a mechanic who works in Jacksonville buying a house halfway between the 2 jobs, because that is the only version of the math that closes. Multiply that one household by a few hundred, and you have a record high in a county nobody was watching. Number 8 is Jefferson County, whose town Monticello sits just east of the state capital. The typical home is about $309,000, up more than 3% to a fresh high, and it is up 85% since 2019. Monticello is capital overflow, the same pattern you just saw with the universities. Tallahassee gets more expensive, and the government workers, the professors, the retirees on fixed incomes look at the map and slide east into Jefferson, where the same paycheck buys a real yard. And if you have made it this far into a list of counties most Floridians could not find on a map, do me one small favor and tap the like button. It genuinely tells the algorithm that people actually want the real story instead of the scary one, and that is the only reason videos like this get made. Number 7 is Hardee County, and here the neat little story I have been telling you cracks in a useful way. Hardee is not up north. Its town, Wauchula, sits in the middle of the state, deep in phosphate and citrus country. Homes, there are around $243,000, up more than 3% to a record, and up 86% since 2019. I am pointing this out on purpose because it proves the pattern is not about the north at all. It is about being rural, inland, cheap, and insulated from the coast's costs. Wauchula qualifies on every count, and it sits 200 miles south of the counties around it on this list. The thread is not a compass direction. The thread is affordability. Number 6 is Gilchrist County, and its town is Trenton, a short drive west of Gainesville. The typical home is about $308,000, up almost 3.5% to a record, and Gilchrist is tied for the very top of the entire state in growth since 2019 at 92%. Think about that for a second. The two counties that have appreciated the most in all of Florida over the last 6 years are Gilchrist and Hamilton, two places with a combined population smaller than a single Miami neighborhood. The people quoting statewide averages at you have almost certainly never mentioned either one. That is the gap between the headline and the map, and you are now standing on the right side of it. Number 5 is Baker County, and its town, McLenny, sits just west of Jacksonville. Baker has the highest home value of anyone on this list, about $317,000, and it just set a record, up more than 3.5% on the year. Baker is the cleanest example of the whole idea. It is a straight commute into a major Florida job market, but it is far enough out and rural enough that its prices never inflated to Jacksonville levels. So when Jacksonville got expensive, Baker did not get expensive with it. It got discovered. The county that people used to drive through on their way to somewhere else is now the somewhere else, and the drive that once looked too long starts to look like a bargain the moment the mortgage numbers land. That is the entire trade in one county line. And here is the thing to hold on to as we climb toward the top 4, because this is where the story turns from a fun list of unknown towns into something you can actually use. The reason these places are rising is the exact same reason the coast is falling, and I am going to show you that in one sentence at the end. Keep watching, because that sentence is the entire point of the video. Number 4 is Suwannee County, and its town is Live Oak, sitting right on the Interstate 10 corridor in Spring Country. The typical home is about $274,000, and it climbed just over 4% to a record. Suwannee is what happens when a cheap crossroads county also happens to be genuinely pretty, with real rivers and real springs, and word slowly gets around. It is still cheap by Florida standards, it is still rural. But it is rising faster than almost anywhere on the coast, on the strength of people who wanted Florida water without Florida saltwater prices. And this is the natural place to point you toward the one resource that pulls all of this together. The Florida Buy and Avoid list for 2026 lays out 40 Florida towns, 20 to buy and 20 to avoid, in one place with the same data behind every single call, and the link to it is sitting in the description right below this video. If today's 12 made you want the whole map instead of a slice of it, that is where it lives. Everything I am walking you through here is the exact kind of thinking that goes into it. Number 3 is Dixie County, and its town is Cross City, out on the quiet Gulf side that tourists never see. Homes there are about $223,000, up just over 4% to a record. Now, Dixie does touch the Gulf, which seems to break the pattern, until you realize it is the nature coast, not the resort coast. There are no high-rise condos here, no beach bars, no insurance nightmare towers. It is marsh, timber, and small towns. So Dixie gets the thing coastal buyers actually want, proximity to water, without the thing that is repricing the resort coast, catastrophic windstorm exposure on expensive structures. Cheap land near quiet water in a state that has grown terrified of its own coastline turns out to be exactly what a certain kind of buyer is hunting for right now. It is the same water without the same wind bill, and for a growing number of people, that trade is the whole decision. Number 2 is Liberty County, and it is the smallest and the cheapest market on this entire list. Its town is Bristol, buried in the Apalachicola forest, and the typical home is only about $206,000. And yet Liberty is up more than 5% on the year to a record high. Fewer than 8,000 people live in the whole county. This is the moment to say the honest thing out loud, the thing that separates this from every hype video you have seen. You probably do not want to move to Bristol. Most of my audience is looking for warm weather, a real hospital nearby, a decent airport, other people your age, and an actual beach. Liberty County has almost none of that. These record highs are real, they are verified, and they are rising the fastest, and they are almost entirely happening in places that are the opposite of a retirement destination. If a video ever tells you the hottest markets in Florida are the ones you should be buying into, this list is the reason to be suspicious. Hot and livable are not the same word. Which brings us to number 1, and it is the fact that reframes everything. The single fastest appreciating county in the entire state of Florida, out of all 67, is Lafayette County. Its town is Mayo, and it is one of the least populated counties in Florida, home to roughly 8,000 people. The typical home there is about $268,000, and over the past year it is up 7.8%. While the state as a whole set a fresh low, while 46 counties fell, while the coast gave back years of gains, tiny Lafayette County rose almost 8% to an all-time high. It is up more than 90% since 2019. It has no coastline, no interstate running through it, no major hospital, and no airport. And it is beating every glamorous market in Florida decisively right now. Remember the caveat from the top, because Lafayette is where it matters most. This is a county where a truly small number of sales sets the price for everyone, so 7.8% is a real move made by a thin stream of buyers, not a stampede. But that is exactly what makes it so revealing. It does not take a stampede to set records in a place like Mayo. It takes almost nothing because there was almost nothing here before. A market this small is a pressure gauge, and right now the needle is buried, pointing straight up, while the big coastal gauges everyone actually watches are pointing down. Sit with how strange that is, because it is the key to the whole state. The fastest growing housing market in Florida is a rural farming county most Floridians have never visited. That is not a boom in the way the word usually means. It is the sound of pressure escaping. Here is the one sentence I promised you. The exact same force, pushing coastal Florida down, monthly payments and insurance and carrying costs finally outrunning what normal paychecks can cover, is the force pushing demand into these 12 counties. When the coast prices people out, they do not leave Florida. They go inland to the cheapest places left, and in the smallest of those places, even a trickle of priced out buyers is a flood. The coast falling and Mayo rising are not two stories. They are the same story, seen from opposite ends. And that is why the statewide average is almost useless to you. It blends a repricing coast and a rising interior into one soft, misleading number that describes almost no real place. When someone tells you Florida is down 3%, the honest answer is that Florida is not a market. It is at least two markets moving against each other, and the average is the fiction in between. The 12 towns on this list are not a buy signal. They are proof that you have to look one level down, at the specific place, the specific street, the specific cost of actually owning there, before any headline means anything at all. So what do you actually do with this? You stop trusting the word average, and you start asking two questions about any Florida town you're looking at. First, what is the real carrying cost? The insurance and the exposure, not just the sticker price, because that is the line separating the falling Florida from the rising one. Second, is this a place people are being pushed toward or pushed away from? Because affordability migration is now the single strongest current in the state, and it runs from the coast inland, not the other way around. A rising market that is rising because people cannot afford anywhere else is a very different bet from a rising market that is rising because everyone wants in. Both of them set records. Only one of them is somewhere you would actually want to live, and telling them apart is the entire skill. So here is my question for you, and I read the comments on these. If you had to bet, is your part of Florida one of the 46 that are falling, or one of the 12 quietly setting records? And more importantly, do you know why? Drop your county below and tell me what you are actually seeing on the ground, because the data lags and you do not. If this was useful, the next thing worth understanding is where in Florida insurance still comes in cheap, because that single cost is quietly deciding which towns rise and which ones fall, and it draws almost the same map you just watched. Go watch that one next. Subscribe to FloridaPulse so the next set of numbers lands in your feed the day it drops, because the split I just showed you is going to get wider before it gets narrower, and I will be tracking exactly where it goes. We will see you in the next one.